You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by FreightPlus. I'm your host, Kyle McNaught. Thanks for checking us out. Today's episode, Jess is joining the show again. Jessica Apostolou, Director of Customer Solutions at FreightPlus, joining me once again, even though she really doesn't want to do this, but I'm forcing her to come on because, as you know from the first episode with Jess, she's incredibly smart, so we have to talk to her. And this is something we're going to kind of have a running series with, so I'm really excited to kind of start it off. But on today's show, we're going to talk and really explain why a company needs to have great insights into their transportation program. We're going to discuss the differences between a program with insights and one without, and then how to even get started, because that's always the hardest part, right? You don't know what you don't know. So, Jess, how's it going?
It's going good. No complaints on my end.
Except for how to pronounce your last name, because I decided I can't say it. I know you're crazy busy, so we'll kind of jump right into this. And I think we're gonna name this series "The Understanding the Implications," which it was something you and I you, not me. I didn't have anything to do with it, but you were talking about, like, given your kind of cool background, your cool history. That was something you really noticed, that like people really didn't understand the implications. But when we say the implications, what do we mean by that?
It means so much. So when I say implications, you want to work with, depending on who your customer bases are, your vendors, however you decide to move transportation, whether it's inbound, outbound, both, there's all these implications surrounding your freight, from a timeliness perspective to the amount you're willing to fulfill and goals that are set for you by your partner. So for instance, if I wanted to sell to an Amazon, they're going to have really strict measures in place about how I deliver to their facilities. Appointments have to be met. And when I say met, it sounds very broad. It's not. It's typically, to a 30-minute window. And if you deliver outside of that, you're considered late. And there's a penalty associated with it, whether it's a slap on the wrist from a scorecard perspective to a financial implication. It varies based on the partner. Same thing with the amount of what you fulfill in the purchase order. If they ordered 100 widgets and you send them 50 at one time, and then maybe 30 after the purchase order is due, there's a good chance, if you're shipping to a very large trading partner, that there's going to be implications to that product arriving not in full and then late after the purchase order date. So a couple of things there. That's just scratching the surface, but those are some implications to understand really the granular detail of not just if it's late, if it's damaged, it's damaged. What does damaged mean? Is it a case? Is it an individual item? Is it a whole pallet? What does that mean? Understanding those implications and having a partner that understands them on your behalf is critical to the success of that relationship really blossoming and thriving.
Yeah, and that's when we were talking, what made me so excited, because as you just explained it, that's sort of that cool thing, not cool, but it's one of those things you don't think about. And I guess my next kind of question would be, what, like, kind of in your opinion, is the biggest hurdle when it comes to just even understanding them or even communicating them? Where did you kind of find people being tripped up?
People are still tripped up. Like, it's really hard to wrap your head around, especially if it doesn't matter who you are, but if you're specifically selling, and I don't want to pigeonhole people or companies that aren't just selling to the Amazons and the Targets of the world. This goes across the board to distributors and whatever the case may be. But for those large trading partners that have these really strict rules, it's really hard to manage if you have multiple, right? Because the guidelines are so specific to them. And depending on how big your business is and how many individuals from your company manage those relationships and really take the time to understand the requirements of all of those programs, it has to be communicated. It has to always be monitored. Otherwise, there's a scorecard usually associated with it, but then there's also that monetary penalty that can be associated with it. That can really hurt your business, right? Because you're not baking that into the cost of your product. Those those slaps on the wrist that you're going to get over time. You're just hoping, hey, I got my foot in the door at Amazon. It's they're taking me down on my prices, and it's going to be expensive. But if it takes off, this is going to be big. This could mean Target. It could mean Walmart. It could be Barnes and Noble, whoever. But you have to have your ducks in a row. And if you don't, your scorecard performance could greatly impact how much they're willing to work with you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's fascinating. Said it. Because like you're saying, it is such a complex thing. And like, you think you understand one way it works, and then how do you kind of manage it as you kind of expand, as you grow and stuff like that. And one of those ways, I guess we'll kind of transition into what we actually want to talk about today, is freight insights and kind of the Power BI, the Power Business Intelligence, really understanding that. To start, before we even dive right into that, let's explain before we even get in there, what do we mean by freight insights?
Freight insights is everything that could impact your transportation. So from a cost perspective, to a performance, to the Colonial Pipeline being hacked and fuel prices going up, what does that mean to getting your freight from A to B, and then the cost associated with it? Because somebody's paying for the freight. I swear that Amazon has put this bug in everybody's ear, and it says free shipping. Somebody's always paying for it. It's getting to Amazon, and then it's getting to you. And that sounds super simplified because there's a lot more touches involved. But everybody's saying, I'm looking for free transportation. It's either baked into the cost of the item, it's baked in somewhere, some sort of annual subscription, something. Somebody is paying for the freight. So when I say, understanding those freight insights, it's how can you do things the most efficiently to get your products from A to B with good service metrics, meaning the carrier's consistently picking up on time, delivering it safely and securely, and you're understanding the true cost implications. Because I'm telling you, using the cheapest cost solution in this market, not going to pan out well. It's not going to, especially if you have a delivery time at 2:00 in the morning and that's not indicated well in advance to the carrier. Set yourself up for success. That's why it's great to have a partner who's really your eyes and ears. And it's our full-time job here at FreightPlus. So we have to make sure we understand the nuances for every lane, every A to B within your network. It's critical. And we need to work together as a partnership over time to understand any sort of changes and new requirements that come out on behalf of your partners or your company, right? You might change your hours, you might move your facility, you might put some sort of systemic improvements, and maybe there's a better way that we can receive orders on your behalf and then give you more with the data that we receive from those orders, right? It's a partnership.
So when we talk, especially kind of that implementing it and getting started with it, especially what the differences really are made up between a good one, like company with a great insights into what their logistics program really has, their transportation programs providing, versus one that kind of doesn't know. I think it all starts with data. Now, kind of in your previous experience, what type of data was collected at like other companies? What did you see? Like when we say like data collection, what was being grabbed? And not just giant companies. I kind of want to know with the mid-sized company, what did you see as kind of the norm when it came to data collection?
Great question. Data is usually awful. It's true, because nobody normalizing data, meaning like, and I will use a random company like a Procter and Gamble. They were a partner of ours at CVS. It's no secret. We carry Procter & Gamble products, but in our system, we might have had P space ampersand space G, and then it written Procter space and space Gamble, and like every different iteration of Procter & Gamble you could think of. That's not a good way to normalize data. And I find a lot of times with shippers, they don't have really good dimensional data for their products, which is critical to shipping, specifically LTL, but it's critical to shipping across the board. So having good weights, accurate scales, good data A lot of that can be stored in a good warehouse management software. The tricky part about that is that nobody wants to spend the time to normalize it. It's just been this accumulation of data over time. Right. And there's all these process improvements going on at companies everywhere because they're just trying to keep up with the times. So no one's taking the time and saying, like, I got to go through this hot mess and clean it out. It's very rare. So typically it's done if a company is going to implement some sort of a new system. That's the time where they're going to say, all right, pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps, we're going to normalize all this data, clean it up. But if you have even decent data, good data, strongly encouraged, there's so much you can do with it. And when I came here, the team showed me our Power BI. We are calling it our FreightPlus Insights dashboard. And it is fantastic. So, and I genuinely mean this from the side that I worked at CVS prior to this, and it's critical, especially if you're selling to anybody, if you're selling products, it is critical to understand what the market is doing from a transportation perspective and how that applies to your product. So, and I use this analogy all the time, and I'm sorry for the people who've heard it 10 times, but if I am selling this pen to CVS, I say I want to charge you $1 for this pen, and that includes transportation. CVS says, you know, I want to look into this pen. Tell me how much it weighs, the dimensions of the packages, how many units are in each package, et cetera. And they're saying, you know what, we're CVS Transportation. We think we can move this pen for 20 cents. Are you willing to sell it to us for 80? Now, I thought transportation would have cost 30 cents. So I'm going to sell it to them for 80 cents, and everybody's winning. So CVS is saving the dime on transportation. I'm selling it to them for 80 cents, the win across the board. But if I actually have no idea what it costs me to ship this pen, I'm shooting myself in the foot, right? So I could just be saying, I don't know. I just know it cost me 80 cents to manufacture this pen, and all the marketing and everything that goes into it, packaging. You take care of it, CVS, and CVS just figures it out over time. But really the best way to do it is understanding, what can you sell this pen for? Because there's going to be instances where you have more buying power than your partner, and you're not going to want them to manage the freight. The more buying power you have, the more cost effectively you can move stuff. So all of our customers at FreightPlus have our joint buying power, the buying power that we leverage for our entire customer base. And our customers are doing great. They're growing year over year. The volume is going up, which is super exciting, right? We're growing with them, but our buying power continues to increase. So what can we do to move this pen on your behalf and really help you understand how much does it cost to ship? Well, we've done that. And that's the part that it's like, people don't have that information. You don't. I'm telling you, they don't. Having worked at my last job,
right?
They don't have that level of information. So now with the Freight Insights Plus, or the FreightPlus Insights dashboard, we're able to show you on a SKU level, by region, by weight, by cost per case, how much it costs to ship this pen. That's insane. That's unheard of.
No, it's like you said, right? It's not normal. It's not that it's not normal. It's hard. It's a lot of work.
It's super hard.
Right.
Super hard, especially if you're junky data.
Right. And it's what both of us sitting up. It's what the Fortune 500 companies have, right? That's kind of that little back pocket negotiating thing that they get to sit in and go no, I know how much it moves. I wonder if I can kind of talk this down and make a little bit I can make this work for me. That's where you miss out. I think that's one of the big things. That's what the difference of a good program, right? Program that knows it. When it comes to negotiating, it's not kind of I don't know, we'll do this, we'll figure out where we're at. You actually know, hey, no, we can't take the cut. It's got to be 80 cents. We got to sell this for this much because otherwise it doesn't make sense for us. But like you say, it's so difficult. I mean, it's funny. You talk about the idea of P space and space G, P ampersand G, Procter and Gamble, all the differences. I mean, even from my dumb marketing side, it's the same thing. I go through the CRM and I'm like, man, how many ways can we write corp or inc, or like if we put one with the period, one without? Like, it's normal human behavior. And I think that's sort of a really interesting thing, is how do you make sure your data is robust, but your systems work to make sure you're not allowing that? Because people are going to come in and they're going to do what works for them. If it makes sense in your head to write Inc., if it makes sense in your head to write Incorporate, if it makes sense to write like DIMS in a way, or like you write the weight and stuff like that, the people are going to do that. How do you kind of eliminate human behavior, more or less, is kind of that interesting aspect of everything.
It's tough. And that's, you bring up a really good point. The people who might listen to this, are the people who have a foundation and an interest in the space. And that's the area where, I'm not a salesperson here. My job here is to support our customers. But the sales side of me wants to know, how do I get people interested who have no interest? Because I'm telling you, if you have a business with any sort of supply chain and you're not interested, you're losing money. Transportation is so nuanced, especially like LTL, at least with truckload. It's A to B. Here's the cost to move it. Here's what the fuel is going to cost. Pretty straightforward. You still need to be able to know how to negotiate it, especially, do I want to move it rail and all,
Right.
There's a lot of things to consider there. But with like LTL, you don't understand like the basics of LTL and LTL pricing. I don't know. It's really challenging to learn. And like, we're here to talk you through it. But like I said, for the individuals who just aren't interested, you're doing yourself such a disservice. How do I tell somebody in 15 seconds, like, this is why you need to care?
Right.
I don't know, and probably why I'm not in sales. But
no, it's one of our clients. We put it out on one of our videos. There's a client testimonial, but they talk about, they're like, it was the elimination of the headaches of trying to be like, all right, our buyers, like, how much does it make sense to buy this for? How does that's one of those big things that, like you say, how do you explain it in a way that like, hey, why would I invest in these hours? Like, that's the thing. It's like, you're already investing in them. You're already doing this work.
Yes.
You're doing it unknown. So you're not really confident in what you're doing. Imagine if you could understand what you were doing, have better decisions. That's kind of what it is. And we're not trying to make this just a commercial about FreightPlus, right? I think one of the trickiest parts with everything, right, is that like when you want to start, you kind of don't know what you don't know. So if someone was trying to like even begin the journey, right? They're like, okay, I heard this. You know what? I would love to not have to sit there and guesstimate how much it would cost, like how much I should sell this. Where should they begin? Where do you kind of start on this journey into getting great freight insights?
Well, if you don't, sorry for yelling. If you don't have a managed trans partner and you don't even know what a managed trans partner does, a lot of people don't. You got to start with your carriers, at least. Your carriers are going to be the best resource for you in terms of cost, right? A lot of like, even if you want to subscribe to like a FreightWaves or whatever, it's expensive. Some people can't justify the cost. There's some good free data out there. There is, but you have to have the time and know where to look. A lot of people don't even know where to look. Mm-hmm. So even though there's some great free publications, are you willing to read, spend 3 hours reading it every week? I don't know, probably not. So start with your carrier. They have a good pulse on the market. It's their job to have a good pulse on the market. Ask them questions, literally anything, nothing stupid. Nothing is stupid. Ask questions. I still ask tons of questions all the time. So start there.
What about potential obstacles? I mean, especially kind of talking to carriers, right? Carriers dealing with driver shortage. They're dealing with their own business. They got to worry about that stuff. Where are some potential obstacles kind of when you're getting started?
Your carrier partners will definitely tell you what's going in the market, but they're obviously going to try to make their solution sound as pretty as possible.
Of course.
That's their job.
Right.
So if there's something going on there, like terminals are, like we're seeing this with LTL terminals across the board, that the network is exploding. They might not tell you that their terminals are so backed up that they're missing 30% of, their daily turnaround every day. So the odds of it sitting on the dock an extra day or two are likely, and you might miss your delivery appointment as a result. So are you able to route freight a day and a half earlier? That would come from someone like FreightPlus. But from a carrier, you may or may not get that level of transparency. And that's why it's always good to have multiple, at least play the odds, right? Don't choose one LTL carrier, one truckload broker, whatever it is you decide to do. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you're kind of stuck. So even if you're able to leverage, you have a small outfit and you don't really know how to turn, leverage multiple national LTL providers. At least you get service across the country, but there's a couple, you know what I mean? Right. Same thing with truckload providers. Acid's the way to go, but typically the acids guy out, they can pick and choose what freight they want all day long. They want really static pickups and delivery stuff that can provide like a continuous loop, meaning they pick something up from A, bring it to B. They can pick something up from B, bring it back to A. These guys want to schedule, not just willy-nilly. They want to be home at night, right? Kids are learning virtually. Times have changed. The pandemic has changed things, and I think it could change things for the foreseeable future. And how carriers operate, LTL providers, not LTL, but truckload drivers like that used to do cross country, and they need to come home at night now. Mm-hmm. So they're just staying regionally. Like the transportation footprint has changed, and it probably will bounce back. We need more drivers, but it's just changed, and we're all not suffering as a result, but it's playing a part in our customers, our jobs, our daily lives, whether you realize it or not. So if you have a partner who can keep you up to speed in a way that works for your business, that is gold.
And the big thing too, it's having it owned. It's having it in your own environment, right? It's not having to, like you're saying, like be smart. Like I know everyone's like, hey, I just want one carrier. Why can't I just go with one service? Why do I have to spread this? Too. Right. Yeah. It would be great. However, like you say, you got to be smart, right? You got to kind of play the field, which is the annoying part about logistics. Why can't I just do one person, regardless of how big my company is? Wouldn't one person want to be able to handle this? Because it's steady freight, but no, it needs to be a loop and things like that. But I think one of the big things you kind of hit on for me is like, own it. This is why we talked about data, why having good insights to your data is important, because you need to be able to cross-check what these carriers are saying to you with your own data. What's one of the big things. So, especially if like, okay, cool, calling all my carriers, but at the same time, I got to get my data in-house and stuff. What type of data connections do you got to make? What's stuff that really a company that's going to have really good freight insights would make? And then kind of what skill sets do you need to have, especially on staff? That's the hardest thing, right? You sit there and be like, I could do this. And then you get into this and your eyes get crosswired. Trust me, I do domain stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? I can do video till the cows come home, but like trying to work like domains and websites. I'm like, what is all this stuff? And it's just, I don't have that skill set. So what type of data connections would a good kind of freight, would a good company with like great freight insights have? And then kind of who makes those, who does those kind of connections?
Yes. So the hot trend now, and it has been for the past, I would say 7 years. I guess it's not a hot trend then, but API connections are huge. API is, I always used to say it's like EDI on steroids. Basically, it's just much faster. It's easier. There's less chance for errors. Mm-hmm. So API allows, one instance, the way we use API here is allows us to get real-time freight rates from some of our customers based on like the uniqueness of our customer's business. So we can basically put the signal out to carriers and we can get rates back within 4 or 5 seconds. And there's not an individual on the other end, typing in a rate. It's hitting a virtual rate card that's been drafted for our business, and it's pulling back that rate really quickly. So that's one way to use it. For us, the big thing is we get order data from our customers, and the more granular that order data could be, and that goes with understanding the SKUs, the correct case packs, the weight, the configurations of those cases and those pallets, that's pretty huge. If you can do that well and provide that to your carriers, you're set up for success. Oftentimes, and I mean often, it's a really big challenge in any sort of supply chain is understanding what your freight is going to look like prior to even building it. So that means I need to request a truck a couple days in advance. That's how I'm going to get my best rate. Instead of calling and say, I need you to pick this up in 4 hours before we close. Okay. No, I'd like to get in touch with the carrier a couple days in advance, secure the rate, secure the load, say you're going to come pick it up next Thursday at 2 p.m. Awesome. A lot of times that product, you're not going to build it out today, have it sit on the dock until Thursday at 2 p.m. when the carrier picks it up. You want to build it out at, say, noon, right prior to them picking it up. But you need to know when you request a truck, how big is it going to be? How much is it going to weigh? That's pretty critical. And a lot of times, depending on the, partners that you might have, they could be willing to go the extra mile and say, I could create this cross-reference table for you if you can give me a list of all your products and, what that looks like from size perspective. And it basically does a lookup to say, it should be about this weight and it should be about this many pallets worth of data. Depends on the partner that you have and how far they're willing to go for you. But that's critical to not having to pay. If you're calling a carrier and expecting same day pickup, and I know I always say it in this market, you are throwing money out the window, like hundreds of dollars more per load to have the carrier come get it that day instead of saying, you can come Thursday at 2. So a lot of times we like to highlight that to customers who might not have very, really strong systems, back-end systems that can provide it. Say, okay, I can get you a rate for pickup in an hour, but here is also the rate if you can hold on to it for this long. And how can we help you with this process? Asking those kinds of questions are pretty huge.
Yeah, no, those are so important. I mean, I do a podcast with Chris Peckham, our VP of Ops, and it's the whole thing. He's like, if you can just fix your tender lead times and just extend that, you're gonna be in a good situation.
Carriers will like you.
Yeah. Carriers will enjoy you, right? That's a big thing. They got options right now.
They do.
Quick, we'll hit this quickly. Time to implement this and then cost. Kind of top of your head, how long do you typically, like, especially kind of you've been around, you've seen companies, how long would it take to implement something like this? If like, hey, right now we're just picking up the phone and be like, I need this picked up. How much would it, like, how long does it typically take a company to do it on their own? And then how much does it typically cost if they're doing it on their own? Yeah,
good question. Depends if you're, we'll just use a small to medium sized business as an instance. You have $10 million worth of transportation that you want managed annually. Well, you don't want someone manually inputting it. You probably want a system where you can integrate. You can integrate a whole slew of ways. It does not have to be via fancy, API connection. Could just be a flat file or something where your system of record, like an ERP or even a QuickBooks, where you're creating those orders, flows into that system on behalf of, the operator in logistics, and they're going to go ahead and query the loads and consolidate those for you. So if you want a system stood up that's integrated with at least an ERP or a WMS or something to that effect, I think you're going to do it right, 18 months. If you could do a quick job, you absolutely can. I don't know, for like the TMS providers that are in the market today, there's definitely the subscription ones that are cheaper. I don't think they use your rates. I don't know what they use, to be honest with you. They're like monthly subscription fees, but you could do something like that. It's just, there's a lot less flexibility. Might be a good interim tool for someone who's a pretty small business. But for, smaller to medium-sized businesses that are doing a bit more in freight, it would definitely behoove you to have an individual negotiating rates on your behalf, really understanding the rates, an operations person or persons managing the day-to-day, pulling the levers, consolidating loads where possible, trying to optimize the freight, and then paying, freight bills and all that good stuff. So need a handful of bodies, a system which I would say on the short end, on like the really aggressive side, 9 months. If you want to do it a little more thoroughly, 18 months plus.
Jeez. And then the cost, like what's it, if we're doing that kind of a good one, right? We're not trying to cut the corners. We're not trying to do this. The idea is how do we make sure we're having great insights? What type of cost do you kind of hear out there right now?
It's across the board, right? So for like the cheapo subscription type application, sorry, I know I'm down. They're probably fine. Especially if you're a smaller company, it's probably a great tool for you. But they're, maybe a couple $100 a month and a flat fee up front just to kick the tires, get things going. For a mid-level TMS, as long as you're not looking at like an Oracle or something that's massive, it's I don't want to say modest, because modest to me is not modest to everybody. But you're looking at thousands of dollars of upfront costs. You typically you'll see, depending on the system, again, and this has been the number that's been circulated for years, a 7% return on investment reasonably quickly. It depends on where you were before you implemented it. And it depends on how robust the system is. So it's such a broad spectrum. You could typically see a return pretty quickly though.
If you could figure out how much to sell the pen for, right? And the right way to do it. But yeah, it's interesting. And I think this is going to be such a fun kind of series going forward, understanding the implications of other things too. But I think this one, just to start off with, Jess, was awesome. Jess, how can people kind of get in touch with you? What's ways that they can kind of reach out to you? I know you have a really cool kind of article you wrote, and now it's a little older, but even then it's still so relevant today. Where can they kind of get in touch with you?
Yeah. So guys, just to be straightforward, I feel really weird plugging my own old article. So I think that's the disclaimer that I need to put out, but it's on my LinkedIn page. And, Kyle's great. He sends me the questions we're going to talk about prior to this conversation. And I wrote an article a long time ago called Performance versus Productivity. And it's literally like 5 years to the day. And the economy is different. After the pandemic, things are going to start to surge, and things were in a good spot 5 years ago too, but it's just different from the timing. But I think it's so relevant because there's so many businesses today that want to do well. And if you can't, even if you could have been around for 20, 30 years, if you can't understand the programs that these big vendors are rolling out, you're not setting yourself up for success. And if you have bad scorecards, they might not carry your product. And it's huge. So how can we help you? We want to be your partner. I would say the article I think is relevant. It talks just about the amount of output versus like productivity. At the time, they were hiring a lot more, but they're not seeing more output. So what's going on in the industry? And in my mind, it instantly went to, well, I need chocolate because I was on an emergency chocolate run. But systems, people, DCs all across the country can't hire people. They cannot get enough staff in. So in that case, if you're not getting product turn around in and out quickly enough, you need systems to do it in place. You might not want to implement them, but if you can't hire bodies, you can't keep up. So what are you going to do about it? Systems. You don't know where to start? Go to a consultant. Ask an expert and invest. I know nobody wants to do it. There's a precious earned dollars, but you need to invest in your business today. If you just start, you're already behind. So the article I think is a good place to start. But LinkedIn. You can email me, Jessica. What's my email?
J Apostolou.
J Apostolou.
Weirdo.
At FreightPlus.io.
Yeah, we'll throw all the links and whatnot in the show notes. So again, everyone can see that. But yeah, I mean, everything you talked about, you kept hinting at it. It's a lot, right? But we talked about it straight up from you as the shipping manager, the logistics operation owning this. The good thing is there's a solution out there, right? Because everyone has so much time, and that's really what managed trans is. Managed transportation, the solution that we provide helps reduce costs, boost visibility, make better decisions. Go to the website, FreightPlus.io, if you want to learn more. Reach out to Jess, reach out to me. We're happy to talk a little bit more, because at the end of the day, that 9-month, 18-month implementation is a lot of work. Carrier sourcing is a lot of work. Doing all these things is a lot of work. It's not kind of what you or the kind of your companies needs to be focused on. You need to be focused on creating the best product, really working on your brand, stuff like that. That's where we can kind of come in and really help out. So all the stuff we're talking about, everything we talk about and understanding the implications really is helping you understand what's out there. But the good thing is there's a solution out there that really takes care of this. So FreightPlus.io to kind of see anything. Otherwise, Jess, awesome talking with you, buddy. I'll see you in a couple days, right? I think you're coming in soon. Now that we beat COVID USA, we did it. So I'll see you soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
And that's our show. Do you have something you always wanted to know about the implications of? Leave it a comment and we'll definitely get to it the next time Jess is on the show. In the meantime, thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Rock and roll.